With all that which a person allows to appear, one may ask, what is it meant to hide? What should it divert the eyes from? How far does he deceive himself in this action? Humans are adept at deception. Throughout our lives, we deceive others as to our intentions, our beliefs, and our actions. But more impactful may be the ways in which we deceive ourselves.
It was called the Peace of Westphalia, and it ushered in a world of countries that respected one another's independence. Today, there are almost 200 countries in the world. But outside of those, there are a number of groups, territories, and even governments that advocate or fight for becoming their own country.
Humans are imperfect beings. Each one of us, we deceive ourselves.
Becoming their own country. Not just anyone can claim sovereignty, though, and there can be disagreements as to what is considered a country and therefore eligible for this status. There are no clear rules or procedures for deciding who gets to form a sovereign country.
You keep saying that you are African Caribbean, which is fine, but how can you be African Caribbean and English? I couldn't be African. I'm English, but I certainly could not call myself African Caribbean.
You could be Irish, though. You could have Irish.
No, I'm not Irish.
Yeah,
I'm
but
not
you could
Scottish.
be. You could be.
No, I'm not. Because I have looked my name right the way back to the Middle Ages, my maiden name, and I'm Anglo-Saxon.
Great.
But you will never be English. You are African Caribbean.
But why will I never be English?
In order to preserve, foster and maintain the positive British culture, values and character, only persons who are white shall qualify by birth or naturalisation to be citizens of Britain. How long do you think I could run an outfit with such a doctrine without the police taking an interest in me, or Channel 4 mounting an undercover operation to expose me as a fanatical white supremacist?
Look,
I can't say to you.
At what point? What about my kids? What are my kids? What are my kids?
I can't say I'm African Caribbean.
What? Yeah, but the truth is, Jean, just a little bit of history on this. Here in England, you can only claim that Englishness effectively, Jean, if you were white.
After all, the standard narrative these days is that the arrival of white people in these new areas was a prelude to genocide and slavery.
Britain, 400 years ago, started going out into the world. It colonised and conquered a lot of the world. A lot of the world has ended up coming back to the mother country. My parents were part of that generation who came from the Caribbean.
Here's what a modern book for the average lay reader has to say about the Spanish conquistadors landing in Mexico. This is a Reader's Digest popular book about the age of exploration. But it's quite interesting because it gives the generally accepted view now. It is correct. And we see here on page 48, Land of the Conquistadors. Hungry for fame and wealth, Spanish soldiers of fortune arrived in South America. Their onslaughts destroyed ancient civilizations as they built an empire larger and richer than any since the days of Rome. Their onslaughts destroyed ancient civilizations.
And actually, the truth is, it's a myth.
For many years, South Africa was regarded as an international pariah for making ethnicity and skin colour the basis for citizenship and civil rights. How we used to cry out about the injustice of such a system, in which somebody born with the wrong colour could be deprived of rights which were taken for granted in more enlightened nations. The apartheid regime was universally condemned. Imagine if such a way of doing things was to be operated by a European country, run perhaps by a white nationalist regime which denied citizenship to anybody who was Asian, African or Caribbean. How shocking we would find a thing like this these days.
There's not, because England has always been a country in which Huguenots, Danes, all sorts of people have passed through. So when you say you are English, I'm not saying that doesn't mean something to you and matter hugely.
It does.
Because there are probably, as you put it, years and years, hundreds of years of experience of that. But it is to say that for me, the fact that I was born here and the fact that my sensibilities are English mean that I want to claim that heritage as well.
We've become so indoctrinated these days into feeling guilty about slavery, imperialism, colonialism and the dreadful things which white people did to the indigenous inhabitants of Africa, Australia and the Americas, that it might seem a little shocking to ask if the coming of the Europeans was after all such a bad thing for those already living in the territories which were colonised.
Now, I'm very comfortable saying I'm British, black British, of course I am, and I'm very, very proud, no one could say I wasn't, because I talk about it all the time, about my Caribbean roots, and I know the Caribbean very well. But it's to say that I'm English. Sorry? What?
You're British, but you're not English.
Well, that's the point I think you're making, and I'm disagreeing with that.
And how swift everybody would be to condemn a country carrying on in that way. Somehow, though, we do not feel it necessary to extend our condemnation to African countries which use identical methods to those once used in South Africa to decide who should enjoy full political rights.
Tell me, what do you think? What do you think?
If I was born in the Caribbean as a white person, I certainly wouldn't call myself.
Yeah. Well, I'm afraid
Caribbean.
you obviously have you ever been to the Caribbean, Jean?
Chapter 4, Article 27, Section B of the Liberian National Constitution. In order to preserve, foster and maintain the positive Liberian culture, values and character, only persons who are Negroes or of Negro descent shall qualify by birth or naturalisation to be citizens of Liberia.
I haven't had the fortune.
Well, then you probably don't realise that in countries like Barbados, there are significant white Caribbean populations who have been there for hundreds of years. And they are significantly more Caribbean than I am.
After all, the standard narrative these days is that the arrival of white people in these new areas was a prelude to genocide and slavery.
Well, all
Didn't
I
know
can
that,
say
did
is
you?
the whole world is polluting everybody the way it's going.
What's that phrase, polluting?
It is.
Why is it polluting, Jean?
Because you are what you are. You are where you are born.
But hang on, Jean.
Your inheritance.
Jean.
It is also debatable the extent to which it could really even be called a civilization. They had not managed to invent either the door or the wheel. Their houses didn't have doors, and nor did they have a written language. The closest the Aztecs came were pictograms which acted as mnemonic aids. To be called writing, a system must be able to express any idea which can be thought of or spoken about, and by that definition the Aztec glyphs fell woefully short of being able to be defined as a true written language. The Aztecs followed a death cult because they believed that the sun was dying and at constant risk of going out entirely, unless it was fed regularly with human blood.
Your inheritance. It's your inheritance.
Jean, I can tell that you are more senior than I am in age, so I want to be polite.
No, don't do that.
In this conversation. Well, that's how I was brought up, that you're polite to your seniors, Jean. But what I'm saying is, the word pollution, where's that word pollution come from?
And these efforts are often violent and prolonged. Violations of sovereignty and disputes over what constitutes a violation happen from time to time.
And that problem has to be faced up to. If you keep ignoring it, it will simply get worse until you can't ignore it any longer, and then you will have to face up to it. And things that can't go on forever don't.
But they've seen it now.
That there's one English ethnicity.
And that's true. So